be sure to tune in and let us know what's going on. Because Kobe meant a lot to a lot of people. Kobe Bryant, like I said, is an amazing basketball player, but he was an even more amazing man. He was someone who changed the lives for a lot of people. He wasn't just someone who was great on the basketball court, but he's someone that impacted people all around the world. He impacted people through his words, he impacted people through his actions, he impacted people through his play on the basketball court, of course. And today, unfortunately, we have to remember Kobe, as it has been 1 year, one calendar year since the tragic death of him, his daughter Gianna, Gigi, and seven others that were fatally killed in a helicopter crash out in Los Angeles. So today, what I wanted to do is just talk a little bit about Kobe Bryant and the impact he's had all over the world in more ways than just one, in more ways than just basketball. And I'd like for you guys, be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, but also leave some of your favorite Kobe memories, and we can go down memory lane about Kobe Bryant. I'll be sharing some of mine, and we'll go down memory lane about Kobe Bryant together, because this is something that this is someone, like I said, that impacted a great number of people. Just to talk about Kobe's impact. Now, you got to remember, Kobe was drafted into the NBA out of high school. He wasn't the first overall pick like a LeBron James. He was the 13th pick, and he was actually traded. So he wasn't the most polished prospect. He wasn't a Kareem type of prospect. He wasn't a LeBron type of prospect. Hell, he wasn't even like a Kevin Durant type of prospect. Like, he was a good prospect. But if you go 13, that means 12 other teams passed on you, and then you were traded. So, like, that's a hell of a way to start your career. You think you're going one place, and then you end up getting traded to the Lakers and teaming up with Shaq. And then Kobe's start to his career wasn't easy. I mean, the man came off the bench the first couple of years of his career. Like, think about that. LeBron instantly was a starter, was a star when he got to the league. Like, a lot of players instantly were stars. Michael Jordan, instantly, he was a star as soon as he got to the league. Kobe actually came off the bench. He came off the bench his first couple of seasons, not the first season, like the first couple of seasons. So just thinking about the mindset that Kobe had throughout the duration of his career, just imagine him coming off the bench. Even though he was like 17, 18 years old, he was still 19 years old. He's still a very young kid. Let's be real. He was a kid. But to come off the bench because the type of player he was, the type of man that we know him to be, that had to be tough. That had to be really, really tough because, like I said, we know what type of dog, what type of mentality Kobe had. But so he overcomes all of that to become an NBA champion his first couple of seasons in the league. And we're talking about by 2000, he was an NBA champion. He was drafted in 96. By his fourth year in the NBA, fourth year in the NBA, he was an NBA champion. And not only was he champion one time, not two times, but a three-peat champion with Shaquille O'Neal. That in itself is an accomplishment. That is obviously Shaq was the best player on those teams. Like, we get it. We get it. Kobe was the Robin to Shaq's Batman. But Kobe had to be there. The Lakers don't win those championships without Kobe Bryant. The Lakers don't even make the finals without Kobe Bryant. Shaq was a great player. Shaq had been up until that point a great player for a very, very long time. At least 8 years in his career. But he had never been able to get over the hump. There was a reason for that. Buck Skull Gang in the house, thank you for your shout out. In Kobe era, let's read Chase. In Kobe era, all high draft picks were coming off the bench except Kevin Garnett. Yeah, I mean, that is true to think about. But and especially if you were a high school kid. So it was different. And he came off the bench and he made his impact felt by the time he was a second-year player in the All-Star game. So like that's how great he was. And that's the potential not only did the fans see, but the coaches actually saw in the NBA currently at that time. They saw the potential of how great Kobe was going to be. Now, just moving forward, because I have a laundry list of things I want to talk about as far as Kobe goes. All the NBA players that are still dealing with the death of Kobe Bryant. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. Now, we know Kobe had his lasting impact on the guys that are currently, not the guys that he just played with, that are currently in the NBA. Those are guys like Kyrie Irving. Those are guys like LeBron James. Was the guys like Trae Young, Jason Tatum. Like these guys had a relationship with Kobe. Both most of them, I mean, some of those guys never played with him in the NBA. So mostly off the court. Let's particularly talk about Kyrie. So Kyrie is a guy that we all know is very interesting. Kyrie Irving is a world is flat type of guy. Kyrie Irving is a guy that missed several games earlier this year, but was seen on tape at a district attorney's meeting in Brooklyn. Like Kyrie Irving is an interesting dude. He is a very, very interesting dude. He's a dude that went to Duke for like 6 days or 6 weeks. And a lot of people think he's smarter than folks for that. I don't want to make that assumption, but that's just some of the reports you read. But the relationship Kyrie Irving had with Kobe Bryant was special. I mean, let's just call it what it was. It was special. From the time I think Kyrie got to the NBA, Kobe was somebody he latched to. You can see the early videos of Kyrie's like first or second year that he's challenging Kobe on a basketball court. I mean, think about Kyrie Irving's first or second year in the league. We're talking about 2011, 2012. We're still talking about a Kobe Bryant that's averaging like upwards of 28 a game, 29 a game. And he's like, dude, you can't guard me. You can't guard me at the Olympic practices. And then from there, by the time Kyrie Irving's winning a championship with the Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron James, we hear the story about him calling Kobe while the champagne is pouring in the locker room. FaceTiming Kobe. Kobe's watching the game. This is a story that Kobe Bryant told. He's watching the game and watching how they're going into the locker room celebrating, and his phone starts ringing, and it's Kyrie. It's Kyrie Irving calling him saying, the advice that you gave me worked. That mindset that you put in me, that mindset that you installed in me, the confidence that you gave me, it worked. And not only did Kyrie help lead the Cleveland Cavaliers to a championship, their first championship for the city of Cleveland in over 50 years, but Kyrie had some of the most clutch moments in that series, including a 41-point game and including the three-pointer that basically sent the Warriors home. Yeah, Kyrie did that. That's the type of dog. That's the type of mindset. That's the type of confidence Kobe gave to the younger generation. Kobe wasn't like one of these haters. And that was one thing I always admired about Kobe. Did not to say that you're a bad guy if you choose to be a commentator. Obviously, I'm a commentator, right? Like I comment on games. I comment on performances. I comment on players, whatever. But Kobe was the type of guy that he didn't really care what folks was doing on the basketball court. He had his whole separate life outside of the NBA. Once he left the NBA, he left the NBA. Like he was done with it. Like he was content. And the reason why he was content, he didn't feel any obligation to come chime in on what the Lakers are doing. He didn't feel any obligation to chime in what the young players are doing. He didn't feel any obligation to join an ESPN crew or a TNT crew or whatever crew. Like once he was done with the NBA basketball, he was done with NBA basketball. He had moved on to something else. He had moved on to being the coach of his younger daughter Gigi's team. Like he was completely content with that. And the reason why Kobe was so content with leaving the NBA all in general is because he gave everything in his being while he played in the NBA. He gave everything in his being while he played for the Los Angeles Lakers. There was nothing more he could do on a basketball court physically. He had physically gave it all. Those 20 years, blood, sweat, and tear, time and dedication, and time away from his family, he gave it all to the Lakers organization and to the NBA brand, to the brand that is the NBA. He gave it all. And that's why it was so easy for him to leave the game and not worry about it. It was so easy for him to leave the game and be content and move on and do other things. So that is why Kobe was able to do what he did and be such an impactful figure to the game of basketball. And like I said, he moved on and was able to coach and start the Mamba gym. Well, it was a gym that was already there. He took it over, the Mamba mentality, and take over as his daughter's head coach. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. Now, there are countless moments on the court that Kobe had as a competitor. Leave comments on your favorite Kobe moments on the court, and I'll run through a few of mine. Obviously, the championships, particularly that fifth championship, is something that sticks out a lot to me, simply because the time that it was happening, the team that you beat the Boston Celtics in a game 7 after being down, after losing to the Celtics 2 years ago in a record fashion. Think about it. The Celtics ran the Lakers off the court. They ran the Lakers off the court in 2018. I mean, in 2008. They ran them off the court. They beat them a record, I think it was 37 points in that final game, in that elimination game. 37 points. So to come back the next 2 years and beat Orlando, because the Boston didn't make it. So you beat Orlando in the championship, you win your 4th title. And you make it back the next year to win your 5th title against Boston in a game 7. That just sticks out to me, because a lot of people for a long time after Shaq left said Kobe couldn't do it. Said Kobe wasn't good enough to lead a team. He wasn't good enough to lead a team to the promised land, to the championship. And that, I think that bothered him. I didn't think it. I know it bothered him a lot. I mean, as much as, as good of friends him and Shaq had become in their later years, they weren't very close when he first left, but they ended up becoming friends, I would say, in their later years. It bothered him that he wasn't winning without Shaq. And not only was he not winning championships, he wasn't winning very many games. Like, they were struggling to get in the playoffs. They were struggling to beat teams and to win regular season games. And when they went out and got them some reinforcements, Lamar Odom, Paul Gasol, Andrew Bynum, they were able to win games and able to be dominant again. So that is one thing that sticks out to me. Obviously, the 81-point performance. We recently just celebrated the 81-point performance because it's something in basketball most of us had never seen before. It's something in basketball it's fair to say none of us had ever seen before. The Wilt game, he scored 100, but there's no video of that. There's no video of him dropping 100. So the closest thing we got to Wilt's all-time scoring record, the 100-pointer, is Kobe's 81. And the way Kobe was able to do it, and the fashion that he was able to do it, and the finesse and the grace that he played with him when he's on a basketball court. It was amazing. It was amazing to watch. It's amazing to watch the replay. That is how great and how impactful Kobe was. And also, so those are some of my favorite moments. The 5th championship is one of my favorites. Kobe's 81-point performance is one of my favorite. The 63 3/4 is another favorite of mine against Dallas. He just dropped 62 on them in 3/4 and didn't even play the 4th quarter. And then obviously the 60-pointer in his final game as an NBA player. 60 points, 50 shots in front of all the celebrities, in front of Shaq, in front of Snoop Dogg, in front of Jack, in front of Magic, everybody. It was just amazing to watch him go out there and drop 60 points in his final game. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. So those are some of my favorite all-time Kobe moments on the court. Now, one of the things that makes me even a bigger fan, Kobe's my favorite player of all time, right? But one of the things that made me even a bigger fan of Kobe outside of basketball is what he was able to do off the court. I already spoke about how when he left the NBA, there were no regrets and there was no itching to get back to the NBA or work with the NBA or in the front office of the Lakers or anything in that capacity. And there's a reason why it was never like that. It's because he gave it all on the court. Like during his 20 years, they got him for 20 years. They took him away essentially from his family. He provided from his family that way for 20 years of his life, right? So from the time he was 17 to the time he was 37, the NBA consumed his entire life. Not just part of his life, it consumed his entire life. He gave it all on the court. So therefore, when he was done with it, he was done with it. It was time to move on. It was time to make short stories. It was time to write books. It was time to coach women's basketball for his daughter. It was time to be an advocate for the WNBA and women's basketball because Kobe had several daughters and one that was dedicated to being the best at basketball, like her dad was dedicated to being the best at basketball. So that's why it was so easy for him to move on, because he had so many other things he wanted to do. He had spent 20 years, over half his life, on a basketball court for the Los Angeles Lakers. So now it's time to move on. And I admired that about Kobe because he had a lot of things going on. He had a whole lot of things going on. Think about it. The man, his first year or two out of basketball, wins an Oscar. He wins an Oscar for a short film Dear Basketball. His short animation, Dear Basketball, that he wrote, and obviously somebody else put the animation together, but he put that together and he wins an Oscar. And freaking Oscar. Like going from NBA champion, one of the greatest basketball players the NBA has ever seen, to winning an Oscar. That's an incredible in itself. Then he doesn't stop there. He takes his storytelling ability or his love for telling stories, especially children type stories, animation type stories, and writes books or has books produced, books published in the Wisnard series, and they become New York Times bestsellers. So he moves on from animation, from basketball to animation, and you could tell a lot of his things were centered around development of children. So he makes an animation, wins an Oscar. He starts the Wisnard series, the training series, and it can't be Kobe Bryant, right? So they're children's books, but it wouldn't be Kobe Bryant without including working hard, staying dedicated, and being diligent to get the ultimate goal. Yes, they're children's books. Yes, they are books to inspire children, and they're written so that children can understand. But the concept and the messaging is all the same. It's 100% Mamba mentality. It is 100% Kobe Bryant. It was 100% ways that only Kobe can tell stories, that only Kobe could configure up, because all of them have a common theme. Yes, there's a hero, and they go through trials and tribulations like all heroes, but it's their work ethic, and it's the fact that they have to overcome these trials and tribulations to become the best or to save the day. It's told in a way that only Kobe can actually depict. The Wisnard series, I advise everybody to go pick up those books. They're great books. It's like 4 or 5 of them, and they're amazing for the children. And like I said, it teaches the story, different stories of characters, and it shows you the character development on how working hard and no excuses can get you what you want. And that's only Kobe could do that. Only Kobe could do something like that. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, because we're going through this. Not only does he do so, he does the animation. He does the autobiography style book too. I forgot that one, the Mamba Mentality book, where he has a full word from Phil Jackson, and he talks about he has some great quotes from Pau Gasol and the impact that he had on Pau and his family. Impact so much so that Pau and his family is still around. Pau and his family still helps out with with Vanessa. And Pau and his family are still around the Bryant family. They still take family vacations. They're still doing the things because he is Uncle Pau. He's not just a figure. He's not just the teammate their dad played with or Vanessa's husband played with. He is someone that is actually incorporated, ingratiated into the family, because that's how much Kobe meant to him. So you have the autobiography style book, Mamba Mentality. You have the Wisnard series. You also have the animation. But one of the greatest things Kobe was doing post NBA career was his advocacy for women's basketball, his advocacy and his love for watching his daughter play, his advocacy for the WNBA. Yeah, we didn't see Kobe at many NBA games. We didn't see Kobe involved with a lot of Lakers stuff. We saw Kobe kind of take a back seat to the NBA game, but pick up the ball and get it rolling on the WNBA game. That's why so many of those WNBA players love Kobe Bryant, because he was, before it was cool to wear the orange hoodie that had the WNBA logo on it. Kobe was taking Gigi to WNBA games. Kobe was working out with WNBA players. Kobe was giving his time and resources to the women's basketball game, so much so that he became a basketball coach himself over his daughter's team. Like that takes dedication. Like, this man literally said, I'm done with pro basketball as far as the NBA goes, and I'm going to coach middle schoolers. I'm going to coach middle school girls basketball, because this is how much I love the game. I love my daughter, and I love the game on the women's side. I appreciate what the women are doing. That's love, man. Like that is genuine love. And he took his Mamba Mentality team, and he talks about how they weren't very good that first year. He talks about how they lost to certain teams that first year, and they remembered who they lost to. They remember losing and getting second and third place trophies. And they remember the not being the best. And then coming back the next year and beating those same teams by 60, by 40 and 50 and 60 points. And taking pictures, not smiling with a second place trophy because they would never strive to be second place. That is the mindset Kobe Bryant had. That is what made him so special. And he ingratiated that mindset into his team and particularly into his daughter, Gianna. On the basketball court, she was a killer. She was a killer. So you have, let's run through it. You have the animation. You have that won you Oscar. You have the Mama Mentality book, New York Times bestseller. You have the Wiznard series, the 5 books, all New York Times bestsellers. Kids books that inspire kids and that ingratiates the Mamba mentality in a children's platform. And then you have him taking care of his daughter and their basketball team, the Mamba court and gyms and stuff like that. And not to mention when Kobe passed away. So the next part of this is the fact that he left over $2 billion in assets to his wife. Over $2 billion in assets to his wife throughout his businesses, throughout his deal with Nike, throughout his move with Body Armor, throughout the gym, throughout the Wiznard series, throughout the books that he had written, or all these deals Kobe had, $2 billion that was left to his wife and his family. That is incredible. That is simply incredible. You were able to be able to accumulate that much wealth. There's no telling how much actually like net worth. Kobe was worth hundreds of millions of dollars by the time he passed away. But in assets that she could cash in on, she could sell all the assets. Over $2 billion was left to his wife, Gianna. That is incredible. That is what we call a head of a household. That is a man's job, to leave your family better than the way you started it. That is simply amazing. Shout out to Kobe. $2 billion in assets for his family. That is simply amazing. Hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. That is something that all men can aspire. Maybe not $2 billion, but to leave your family, to not worry financially, to not worry where things are going to come from. It's simply amazing. To do that, to be able to pass away, whether you're sick and they know what's coming, or unexpectedly like Kobe, but to be able to leave your family in better shape than they can never want for anything, should be every man's dream. Should be every man's dream to leave their wife $2 billion in assets. That is just simply amazing. And so moving on, some of the things we've learned about Kobe since his untimely passing is kind of interesting. And I think it continues to show how great of a person he was. So I talked about all the assets and the things that Kobe left for his wife and his family. And it's crazy to find out that Kobe was actually planning to leave Nike, allegedly. Let's throw allegedly out there. Kobe allegedly was planning to leave Nike and start his own shoe company that put the players first and that would give back to the Black community. That is something that is admirable. He wasn't really feeling Nike speed on the way they were releasing his shoes. He wasn't really feeling the way Nike was doing some of the things. And he created a prototype. And there's a prototype out there. I've done a whole video about it. How he planned to leave Nike and start his own empire. Start his own sneaker-based empire that would give back to the Black community. That in itself is admirable. That in itself is admirable because it's doing a lot more than others had ever done. Starting that at Nike or doing that, planning to leave Nike, is just something that is amazing. I really wish we would have been able to reap the benefits of Kobe starting his own sneaker brand. I really wish we would have been able to see Kobe and his journey of creating his own shoe, creating his own brand, empowering the players first, doing something that will help our community. I really wish we would have got the chance to see that, because that would have been something that was special. I think we'll see something you remember Master P is trying to acquire Reebok, and I think we'll see something along those lines if Master P and that deal is able to go through along those lines. But it'll never be the same as if Kobe would have been able to start his own sneaker company, because I think he would have been able real competition to the Adidas of the world, real competition to the Nikes of the world, real competition to the Pumas and all of these different sneaker companies. Because unlike a LeVar Ball or even a Master P will be like in Reebok, real NBA players and real fans and a boatload of people would have followed Kobe over to his sneaker company. Just like a boatload of people follow Kanye over to Yeezy, from Nike to Yeezy, and Yeezy sell out every time they come out, a ton of people would have followed Kobe to building his brand and his own sneaker company. I can guarantee you, whether it's here in America or over in China or everywhere this man was loved or all around the world, a ton of people would have followed Kobe. So that's my thoughts on that. And so I just want to just wrap this up by saying, Kobe was someone whose impact was felt all over the world. Kobe was someone who dedicated his life, hit the first part of his life to the game of basketball and everything that came with it. And then the last few years of his life dedicated strictly to his family. And you saw a lot of it, particularly with his daughter, Gigi. I just want to say rest in peace, Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, Gianna, and never forget the other 7 people that were on that helicopter that day that fatally crashed. I have my Kobe and Gianna pin. I don't know if you guys can see it, but yeah. So rest in peace, Kobe, rest in peace, Gigi, and those other 7 people. And I just want to just be a light in the world, guys. Just be someone. If you take anything from Kobe Bryant, just take the mentality. The Mamba mentality is that you just work as hard as you can at being the best that you can do, at being the best person that you can be, at being the best teammate that you can be, and being the best at what you do. My man, shout out to Tyler Miller, man. Tyler Miller says Nike athletes can do it. LeBron, KD, Kyrie, PG. Like you're absolutely right, Tyler. Like it is something that the other athletes can do. If LeBron decided to leave Nike and start his own thing, I can guarantee you others will follow. Same with Kevin Durant. Same with Kyrie Irving. Same with Giannis Antetokounmpo, and they can come together and collaborate. And I think that's what Kobe's idea was to collaborate with other athletes and get this new sneaker thing popping. But you got to want to do that, right? Like LeBron clearly doesn't want to do that. LeBron has his hand in a million other things that also benefits the Black community. So I'm not knocking LeBron. I'm not knocking anybody. If they want to collect a check from Nike, it's a big check. So I'm not mad at them. But at the same time, that's why it would have been so special to see someone do that, to see Kobe do that. It would have been absolutely special. And that's why it's sad to say that we never got a chance to see that. So yeah, once again, I'm Jeff Lightsy Jr. with the Victory Formation Sports Show. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. Thank you guys for tuning in with me, rock with me, and rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. And leave in the comments below your favorite Kobe Bryant memory. I'll see you guys.